And I'm a little bit late to the party on this one, but intelligent speed assistance, or just simply put speed limiters, are now required on all new cars that come out of Europe, and that includes us here in the UK despite Brexit. It came as part of a wider requirement by manufacturers to include a bunch of advanced driver assistance systems in their cars. That includes stuff like lane assistance, automatic emergency braking, and even simple stuff like reversing cameras. So what is intelligent speed assistance? How is it going to affect you and your car and potentially your new cars in the future? And does this mean that you're going to be stuck driving at the speed limit for the rest of time? Well, let me talk about that in this video. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoy this kind of content. Subscribe as well if you're new here. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So what is the technology we're talking about and how is it going to work? Well, first of all, if you've ever driven a relatively new car, you might see that on the sat nav, it automatically tells you what speed you need to be doing in different areas of road. So if you go onto a 30 miles per hour area, it will tell you to do 30. And if you go into a 70 mile per hour area, i.e. a motorway, it will tell you to do 70. Now, in many occasions, that is because cars have cameras on them that are able to pick up the road signs that then tell the car what speed you need to be doing. That's an easy way of doing it, because what it means is that the car can automatically change to a different speed limit depending on where you're driving, and if there are roadworks, they can pick up roadwork signs to change the speed limits for that as well. In pretty much every new car I've driven for the past few years, there has been that technology already existing. Well, the speed limiting technology effectively uses that and then doesn't let drivers go over that speed limit for more than a few seconds. And when I say that, what I mean is it will do a number of different things depending on the car in order to slow you back down to the speed limit once you've gone over it. The process is called nagging. If you've ever had a parent trying to tell you to do your homework or to do some chores or whatever it is, it's basically the same thing, but your car's doing it to you instead. So it might start flashing a reminder that you need to slow down. Maybe the speed limit goes red on the display in front of you, that kind of thing. It will start to flash as a beginning option. And then you might hear an alert or an alarm, that kind of thing, playing in the background behind you to annoy you, kind of like when you don't put your seatbelt on when you get into a car. Of course, in that instance, it might also get more urgent or start to harass you even more. Just like if you go out without your seatbelt on, it starts going like beep, 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 beep. Then it starts going off as if like a bomb's about to drop or something. And in a case where a driver ignores all of those different signs, it might even apply the brakes to bring the car back down to what it believes is the speed limit. Now, just to make this very clear, this won't affect you immediately. There is potential that this comes in over the next few years. It's only happening in new cars, so old cars aren't currently being retrofitted with this kind of stuff. And even cars that have been launched this year, before or around the time that this directive has come into place, don't need to bother adding it until like 2024 or something. And the question on many people's lips, of course, like most other in-car systems, you could deactivate it. Now, let me make something very clear here. I understand why you would have a speed limiter in a car. It makes perfect sense. We have speed limits on the roads for a reason. They are for safety purposes. They've been there for like forever. Not forever, actually. The speed limits actually came in, ignore my nerdiness. I could go into depth on when speed limits came in, etc., but let's ignore that for a second. What we want to know is that speed limits are a thing for the sake of safety. We might not agree with them in terms of how low they are or how low they are in certain places or even how high they are in certain places. Like some country lanes being 60 miles per hour is utterly ridiculous. Like, how are you going down a single track road at 60 miles per hour in any car? Like, it's dumb. But with that in mind, I absolutely hate these driver assistance systems personally. This year I actually drove a Mercedes A-Class with the advanced driver assistance systems in it, and I just hated them. The lane keep assist was potentially one of the most dangerous things I think I've ever seen in a car. When you drive across a white line, whether it's on a motorway or on a like standard A road or whatever it is, the car just brakes hard and veers rapidly in the opposite direction. It's actually quite frightening. Now, I understand it would work really well for someone who wasn't focused, if they were driving tired, if they weren't really like keeping their eyes on the road. It would make perfect sense to give them that kind of shock. But when I'm just trying to clip an apex, bro, I'm just trying to get that sweet little apex, or there's a fat truck on one side of me and I just want to like give it a little bit more space by moving to the edge of the lane on this side, I don't need the shock of my life just destroying me like that. Anyway, apologies, I'm ranting. It also had a similar thing in the pedal, if I can remember correctly, which meant that if you were going over the speed limit, it would give you a little like vibration, is the best way I can put it. And again, all of these things could be turned on or off. And if they can be turned on or off, why make them a legal requirement in the first place? Well, the benefit is actually to the insurers and the car manufacturers, because all cars are being built with better and more advanced data logging systems. They're able to look at how a car is being driven, how fast it's been going, what systems are turned on versus what ones are turned off. And if in the case of a crash, it is shown that you had your system turned off and you were doing excessive speeds, then that might invalidate your insurance or any other kinds of potential backfires on you deciding to drive super fast and causing a problem. Those data logging systems can also show if you're driving erratically or weirdly or just in a way that is putting your fellow road users at risk. Now, one of the main problems with any kind of data logging piece is that it needs to have accurate data capture, and considering this entire thing relies on the cameras on a car being able to spot what speed limits are, if they don't spot those speed limits for whatever reason, or if they are distracted or confused by something else, for example, a truck with a speed limit on the back of it affecting what speed limit it tells you to do, then there are problems with the reliability around getting the right speed limit. So for example, if a European truck has an 80 km/h speed limit on the back of it, and a UK car drives up behind it and accidentally sees that and takes that as gospel, then you might find that your car is telling you that you can do 80 mph rather than 70 or 30 or whatever the speed limit is that you're in. But to be balanced, having driven quite a few cars with this system in place now, they're pretty accurate. I would say maybe 70 to 80% of the time. That's plucking a number out of the air, by the way. That's just based on personal experience, so that is not the correct and gospel figure. They just seem to generally get the right speed limit. And if you're wondering why this piece of legislation applies to us here in the UK, despite being an EU piece of legislation, well, you probably could have guessed that it would happen anyway, because the Department of Transport has been at the forefront of pioneering road safety technology for quite some time. The UK was one of the earlier countries to adopt seatbelts, for example, and so it only makes sense they would also go down the lines of road safety from this perspective as well. Plus, it's worth mentioning that when cars get new features, they generally get them globally, because it is more hassle and more effort and more production line cost for companies to build cars to different specs all the time. If they've got to build cars with catalytic converters for country X, and then they've got to build cars without them for country Y, and then they've got to build cars with different advanced driver assistance systems for country Z, and then they've got to build some other cars, you get the idea. It is much easier for them if they can just build one set of cars with one set of options, with one set of things on them that apply basically globally. And so I thought I'd want to finish this video by just talking about my thoughts on it and the general argument around it. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below as well, so please let me know your thoughts on speed limiting technology in cars and what you think in terms of an argument around it, because I'm actually really struggling. I like driving cars fast. It's one of the things that I enjoy most in life, and I've just come back from a track day where I did that, and I went to a track day a couple of weeks ago where I did that as well. Basically, I like driving fast in cars. I also find many speed limits around the UK to be quite impeding, specifically on motorways where 70 mph just feels really, really slow. But that doesn't give me the right to drive over 70 mph just because I feel like it. At least not from a legal point of view. You might still do it, but it doesn't mean that it was the right thing for you to do just because you don't agree with the law. This is kind of where I'm struggling. I don't want a speed limiter on my car, but why don't I want a speed limiter on my car? There's a very clear reason why I don't want a speed limiter on my car. And how do you make that argument? It's a really difficult argument to actually make. I think the main argument you can make against it is the technology not being good enough today, but as we know, tech generally gets better over time, so it will probably get good enough in the future to be like 100%, or maybe not 100%, but like in the 90s in terms of percentage accuracy. Some people will argue the freedom point of view, i.e. their freedoms are getting limited by this. Well, the freedom was already limited. You already had the law in place. You just chose to ignore the law. Laws exist, we can choose to follow them or not, but at the same time, legislators can choose to enforce them or not. It's not like someone's coming around your house and like beating you with a stick to make you do certain speeds in your car. It's not like there's capital punishment around it. It's just a way of making people follow speed limits. My problem with that line of argument is that if you go down it far enough, you get to a point of what is right and what is wrong, and then I struggle to even define either. But before I go into an existential crisis, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Let me know in the comments down below if you've got a better argument than I have for why you shouldn't have a speed limiter in your car. I'd love to see what you guys come up with, so please do let me know in the comments down below, and feel free to debate, but keep it respectful. And remember that luckily none of this will affect me because I drive a 2002 Polo and a 1997 Mazda MX-5. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to hit the like button. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe as well if you're new here. A massive thanks to the patrons for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.